Obviously the beta was quite successful with 2.7 million people playing it. I mean, what was the main thing that you learned from the beta?
Well, initially I think the main thing that most of us learn is that change is hard sometimes. After people had spent years and thousands of games playing Halo 3, the sort of sudden leap to something that was not Halo 3, that was actually quite different in many regards, was not the easiest transition for a lot of people. But it was really interesting to watch over the progression of that 3 weeks, sort of the tides turn and people start to play Reach the way it's meant to be played and to understand the nuances of the weapons and aiming and armor abilities. And it was really cool to see by the end that it started to be really embraced by players, hardcore and casual alike.
Did you learn anything about the armor abilities? Did people kind of gravitate towards one and not the other? And have you done anything to kind of change that and make them kind of even?
I think the armor ability that kind of got the biggest tweaks, and most of them didn't really get touched at all. But I think in the beta, Jetpack was sort of obviously the one that drew the most people. It was the most radically different and kind of just satisfying to fly up in the air. But it's funny that it very quickly came dismissed as kind of a noob ability because surely you're an easy target as you're floating across the sky. Armor Lock was kind of the one that people seemed to try and use the most effectively and thought was actually overpowered in the beta, and we've tweaked that slightly since. So biggest difference being, for one, people were able to use it in a way that was never intended. Rather than sort of locking themselves in place for a period of time, people were getting so good at rapid firing it that they'd get about 4 or 5 uses out of a single charge. So imagine every time someone tried to melee you, you could armor lock at that split second. And it also had the side effect of when you hit the player, you lost your shields entirely. So people were using that very effectively. Every time they tried to get hit, they'd armor lock and then punch you back and you'd be dead immediately. So a couple changes were made to sort of extend the cooldown and make it so you couldn't rapid spam it as much as you could in the beta. And then it also no longer will drop the shields of your opponent if they hit you while you're locked.
Have you dialed down the damage of the grenades as well?
Yeah, you're right. The damage actually, for as much relevance as it has to you, is only affected by about a point. But the bigger issue is that sort of the radius and the drop-off of the damage has been changed slightly. And I think there was a combination of some other things that were not being visually communicated to the player properly in terms of how their health system was working that made people feel like the grenades were even more lethal than they really were. But they were almost working as designed, but there were just a couple small tweaks made in post-beta. You might have a little more insight.
Yeah, I mean, we noticed that a lot of people had a certain overreaction because the way we sort of changed the grenades was not only just damage, but the full screen effects that impact you. And of course, things like sound and effects, visuals, all play in people's sort of minds to make them think that there's more going on than there is. And sometimes that in combination with just tiny subtle tweaks can go a long way, and perception sometimes is everything, especially with multiplayer. So yeah, I think there were some minor changes, but we also wanted to sort of bring the system back a little bit to Halo 1 and sort of find that really sweet spot for gameplay.
So we also made some fundamental base changes to movement speed and jump height as well. They were increased as a result of the beta, solely on account of just universal overwhelming feedback that people felt it was just a little too much away from Halo 3. So one of the results of that is now you can get away from grenades easier. You can jump out of the way and still survive an impact if one lands at your foot, which is probably the thing that most people were frustrated with the betas. It was just they had no time to react. It just killed them instantly. So all these things kind of work in tandem to make grenades feel a little more balanced and more integrated into the sandbox.
First strike. Close call.
My understanding is that the game isn't more lethal, but the intention, I believe, and when you speak to most of the designers, was to draw out the encounter timing slightly. So a little more time would pass between the time you started shooting someone until the time somebody died, giving people a little bit more time to react and try some interesting counterattacks and just deepen the engagements. But there wasn't a significant shift made to the amount of health that you have versus sort of the amount of weapon damage. But I think shield recharge may have also been slightly tweaked.
Yeah, I think we slowed that just a tiny bit to just give a little bit more drama to the situation. And on top of that, the way that our sort of armor abilities, and loadouts. The way they impact the game also has an effect, in that people this time can get more used to choosing an armor ability, and then that, of course, is going to have probably a much more radical effect on the way the games play out, other than some of the subtle tweaks that we put into the sandbox. One of the best things about Halo, one of the most unique things about Halo, is obviously vehicles. And so whenever we look at a new game or new Halo game, we say, well, how do we gotta of course dial this thing up. We gotta stay ahead of the curve. And when we looked at, hey, this is a game about a global war, a sci-fi game. What's the best way that we can really ratchet this thing up and make the most memorable experience? So we thought, hey, let's go into space. Let's fly spaceships up in high orbit. That'll really be something to remember. And then, of course, that presents its own challenges in development. We have 4-player co-op. How are we gonna go for this? And so, yeah, let's have it so everybody's flying their own ship, and ends up being just a great amount of fun. And that's just one sort of unique mission. And the nice thing about Reach is we didn't develop Space Combat and say, well, that's our go-to thing and we'll just keep doing that. We said, all right, that's one mission, and every mission sort of has the over-the-top thing or just the unique and unique gameplay experience that will define each mission. And we're really excited for people to see the whole game for that reason.
Obviously, you guys take cheating in the multiplayer very seriously. Is there anything you've done for Reach? I mean, have you ramped that up? Are you looking to be more strict? Have you got ways to determine that people are cheating and stuff like that? Because, I mean, a lot of the online community take that quite seriously.
Sure, and we do too. I mean, Halo 2 was a big learning experience for us, and with enormous popularity of the game and the volume of people playing it, just the ratio of bad people to good people inevitably kind of went up, and the impact they had on the community was greater. So, from Halo 2 to Halo 3 and then now into Reach, it's always a little bit of an arms race. We're always trying to stay one step ahead, and ideally we've identified as many of the potential exploits as possible. Certainly that was one of our goals for the beta, was let's hope to see people push and try and stress and break the game in different ways. But suffice it to say, we've continued to evolve our banhammer tools, our detection tools. We work very closely with the live team, and on the platform side, they take cheating extremely seriously as well. And unfortunately, there's just a lot of really smart people out there with a lot of spare time who keep finding new ways to break things that weren't supposedly able to be broken. So I think that we're in a pretty good spot now, but we still take it seriously, and it's something that we'll be watching closely. And we won't hesitate to ban people, and we have all sorts of different severities, from auto-detecting people in certain infractions and issuing appropriate punishment to having a live team themselves basically make someone unable to connect to live, period. I think one of the new things people will be excited about too is how we're going to be able to penalize people who are habitually quitting out of games, which isn't actually cheating, but it creates a really negative experience for everybody else in the game. So we actually have new tools now to detect that, and eventually people who do this habitually will actually be penalized, and we want to remove them from the population so they can't make everybody else keep having a bad time.
Is it your last Halo game ever? I mean, obviously you're moving on to the deal with Activision and working on a new IP. Can you ever see you returning back to Halo, maybe working with Microsoft again?
Right now we definitely view this as our final Halo game, and we've gone into it with that in mind, and it's definitely helped us to make sure that this can be something that we can stand behind for years to come and be really proud of. And honestly, our next plans for our next universe are so ambitious that we've pretty much committed ourselves to about 10 years of work to tell the types of stories and create the types of experiences that we want to do. So it's really hard for me to see us ever really having any spare time to even go back to Halo. But that said, our whole team still has a special place in our hearts for this franchise, and we're just going to shift from becoming the people who created Halo and who have built these games to basically just being fans of Halo. And I guess we'll all just wait and see what's next.
In the meantime, we're really looking forward to the release of the game, and that's kind of the most exciting part for us, is we put all this work into it, but we still haven't released it to the public, and it's very exciting time for it right now. So.
Will you be working on the post-release support, or is that 343?
So we're going to have a team of people that will be dedicated to supporting the game and our community. Inevitably, eventually, there'll probably be some sort of transition that will occur, but those types of discussions haven't really been formalized yet, because, like Niles said, we haven't even actually got the game out the door. And we're going to stick by it, and regardless, at the end of the day, both sides are totally committed to making sure that Reach continues to enjoy, the experience and lifespan that it deserves, and that the community continues to have a great time playing it and don't suffer in the process.
Do you think you'll go back to working with Microsoft though, say after you've worked with Activision?
It's always possible. I mean, we have no ill feelings toward them. We've had a great run together, and obviously, whatever project we continue to work on will still be included on their hardware as well as potentially others. So, we're always going to have a close relationship with Microsoft.